All right, enough of that. I had a question from a student about how to use pentatonics and target notes on fiddle tunes. In this case, Whiskey Before Breakfast. I was just noodling around a little bit there, not really adhering to much of anything, but just kind of showing how the basis of a D pentatonic scale can be used in a fiddle tune in D, like Whiskey Before Breakfast. I wanted to real quickly just show you in D 5 shapes of pentatonic. If you've studied it in G, just shift it into a D position. The lower one is starting. So 5 shapes. Here's number 2. Three. Oops. I'm going to G there for a second. 4. And lastly, 5 shapes of D pentatonic. Why 5 shapes? 5 notes in the scale. Starting the scale on each different note up the banjo. And those are the notes in the D pentatonic scale. The target notes that I always look for when I'm seeing these scales are the root of the pentatonic scale that I'm playing. On the lowest position, oh, there's a D. And there's my D. 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 And D. And what that helps me do is have a look at a pentatonic scale almost like a chord change, so that when you're seeing a D chord, you've got those, you see those D's right away. One way, just this little side note, one way to get proficient at that is to, of course, learn the 5 shapes as they are, but then for each shape, play through the circle of fifths, looking at the target note that you're dealing with. I'll do that really quickly on just one shape. There's my D on the B string, G on the B string, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, right? D flat's a C sharp, so what's the next one? F sharp to B, B to E, A, D. Now we're back at D. I'll play through that real quickly. D, G, C, F, B flat, right? B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, we're back to A back to D. Okay, so if you do that on all 5 shapes, keeping in mind your target notes for each shift through the circle of fifths, it really helps you recognize those notes, target notes / shapes. Now, for Whiskey Before Breakfast, there's several ways of looking at this. The simplest way, and the reason why pentatonics are so great, is that if you play just a D pentatonic over the entire set of changes, all the chords in Whiskey Before Breakfast, and on to the B part, all those chords are in the key of D. So in theory, you could play a D major scale over everything, and you're playing vanilla notes within the key of the song you're playing. But in this case, we're thinking of a pentatonic scale, D pentatonic, which is the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, D, E, F sharp, A, and B. All those notes are even more vanilla than a major scale is because you take out 2 notes in the scale. The 2 notes that are missing are, let you think about it for a second, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a G, 5, 6, 7. So 4 and 7, which is a tritone, that's a G and a C sharp. That tritone always wants to drive back to the key center. So that tritone, when you take those notes out, that tension is removed. So that tritone, the tritone, by the way, is the 7 and the 3 of the 5 chord. Those notes are, you hear us say a lot that the 3 and 7 are the most important notes in any chord, and it's true because the 3 determines major or minor, the 7 determines a major 7 or a natural 7 sound or a dominant 7 sound, a flatted 7. When you remove those 2 notes, which we do in a D pentatonic, we remove those 2 notes from the D major scale to create a D pentatonic scale, all the tension's gone. So when you play through the changes, you can just play D pentatonic. Recognize that as the A part of Whiskey Before Breakfast. Very simple. And you land on a note, which is a chord. A note within the chord. In the case of what I just did there, I could land on the 3rd, the root, or the 5. Now, the next part of this would be able to add, would be to add a G pentatonic, which is built on the 4 chord, or an A pentatonic, which is built on the 5 chord. Now that adds back in because when you play a G chord and an A chord, which is root 3, 5, well, the G pentatonic scale has root 3 and 5 in it. And the A chord has the 3 and the 5 in it. Well, by bringing in those 2 chords, you bring back in tension notes. There's your G, which is the 4 of the key, and so you bring those back in. So by bringing in a G and an A pentatonic scale into your improvisation, basically playing them just as if you were playing a chord. In other words, if you were playing B, G, D, A, D, G, D, A, G, you could be thinking of those pentatonic scales as you're playing those chords. The first best way, well, first of all, practice your G and your A pentatonics the same way that I was showing you in the D. Look at your target notes for G. shapes, G, right? G, G. So you look at those notes, and the same thing with A. Now, you see those target notes, and you see those just as you would see as if you were just playing simple chords over those things. Because, well, whatever. It's just that it, in my mind, it works really well to think of it that way, and it seems to work. So now, the simplest way of doing this is to pick a shape and then play that shape, seeing the target note of the D, G, and A chords. So you might think of it like this. If I were to start. And of course, landing on the tonic of whatever you do. So that's a really simple way of following it. So a real easy way of inserting those pentatonic shapes into your improvisation. Now, you're still working with 7 notes in the key of D major. That's still, a lot of people look at that as a very vanilla way of improvising. This improvisation is designed basically as a beginner's way of seeing how to improvise over fiddle tunes, but a lot of the principles within it extend into jazz, more complex chord changes, more complex melodic ideas, and you build on this idea of being able to see these 5-note shapes all over the fingerboard, and then don't ever forget that you can bring back in major scale things into this idea and learn how to connect pentatonic shapes, your major scale shapes that we've learned. I always have my students learn 7 positions of a D major scale, which you can think of as 7 modes of D major, and start to connect those things together. This takes a lot of work and a lot of noodling, and so, you know, don't forget that you can always do that. The second way of looking at the pentatonic scales, rather than just doing those big shifts, is to learn to recognize your pentatonic notes, those target notes, within like a hand position or a couple of hand positions, like this. 2, 1, 2, 3. What I did there was I shifted between this pentatonic to this G, this D pentatonic, to this very close G pentatonic, to this A pentatonic. So now I'm seeing a closer voicing. I could have used this A pentatonic. And then I'll just do it in a different form. This time I'll use this D pentatonic, and then this G, and then this A. That works. So so you can, and that makes, what you have to think in terms of that is, I would have thought that D target, and now I'm thinking this target, So I'm seeing these target notes and using them to guide what pentatonic scale I choose. A couple of side notes, or at least one side note. I rarely play the straight pentatonic on the 5 chord of the key. I almost always use what's called a dominant pentatonic. I superimpose the 7 note of the pentatonic scale rather than the 6th note of the pentatonic scale in the 5 chord. What that would mean in this case, there's your D. When I go to A, rather than playing a pentatonic, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, I would take that 6 out and turn it into a 7. And maybe even instead of playing that, maybe play, but go 3, 4 instead of 1, 2. So that turning that 5 chord into a dominant 7 rather than a straight pentatonic brings a little bit of flavor. Here's the shapes for that, just the straight pentatonic with the flatted 7 inserted over the 6. Let's see if I can even remember how to do this. So there's A. There it is. There's your A. Take that out and turn it into that. Here's your A. So you've got this pentatonic shape turning into this, right? And then this pentatonic shape turning into this. Well, I changed it a bit. I changed the fingering because it lays out better. You're actually going. I play it like this instead of like this. Yeah. Actually, I added the 6 and the 7 into that one. With a 9. Anyway, that one's, up to. That might be an easy way to play it. Take the root out of it. So that one, there's 3 options for that that are all each a little bit different and not straight. What I was not doing exactly what I said I was going to do before. Here's your A. A. So there's all those. Anyway, the idea is you turn your 5 chord into a real 5 chord, and it brings even more flavor into your use of 5 note shapes on the banjo fingerboard. So I think that's all I wanted to cover on this. Oh, actually, one more little thing. In the B part, I didn't cover much of the B part, but in the B part, there's that E minor. Don't freak out over that, because E minor pentatonic and G major pentatonic are the same. So anytime you see that E minor in the chord, just play G major pentatonic. Okay, I hope that's not terribly confusing.